I have tried to make this video, and I am not lying to you, no less than 15 times, trying to recap it in a way that you would feel that you kind of had gotten the flow of things, but there's no flow for me to give you. It was, let's talk about this random thing, let's talk about that random thing, let's talk about this random thing. And through all of it, it's Meghan going, praise me constantly and answer back the critics with me. Hello, how are you? Welcome to my channel. My name is Cheer Denise. We're going to talk about Meghan Markle's new podcast today. This new podcast that she has is entitled Confessions of a Female Founder. And if you thought it was going to be some kind of interesting, sort of Bloomberg-esque business content, you'd be dead effing wrong. This was the most disappointing bit of content she's created so far, and that's really a shocking thing to say considering she's the one who gave us Archetypes and With Love, Meghan. Both of which were colossal mistakes. Now, her first podcast was terrible because it was overproduced. It was, as is everything she does, completely outdated in the way that it was programmed. It was just very scripted. And so I fully expected that this venture would be one in which she'd learn from the critics of the last podcast, and that this time it would be more of a conversation where she's sitting down with her guest and having a more organic conversation about the topic at hand. But even in order to do that, you can't just have a random conversation about whatever hits your fancy because this person had success. That's kind of what it felt like. It's like she chose a friend in her friend group who has had major success in her field and then thought that they could have a podcast where they just kind of like have a chatty conversation, and that was going to work because the title said it was Confessions of a Female Founder. So it's your job to mine anything out of that conversation that might be able to support that title. It's not her job to interview this person with any kind of bullet point, any kind of organization, anything that's supposed to help you learn how to take a dream into a reality. That's not her job as the host. You know, you're lucky to be in on this conversation. You just need to sort of pick and choose what you can from the wisdom of these two geniuses, one who has made it and the other one who probably will, you know. I'm telling you, I've never wasted 50 minutes in such a disagreeable way before because I kept waiting and hoping that this could be something. Honestly, I think the idea for the podcast is really great. I think it's limiting when you say it's just the female founders. I think that's dumb and exclusionary because I think that Confessions of a Founder would have been just as interesting if it had been from a men's perspective. But Meghan lives her whole life like it's 1992 and she's on the campus of NYU. She has such a dated perspective of the female plight that she would do something as dumb as excluding 50% of who she could have interviewed. More so, really, because there's more male founders. Don't we just want to talk about the secrets of success by people who have done it? Why do we need to be so female-centric? But anyway, she chose somebody whose name was Whitney Wolfe Herd. And I suppose it being a female-centric show, choosing Whitney was a good idea. Whitney came up with Tinder, and she grew in fame, and she was put on people's radar because she was, I believe, one of the founders of Tinder. She left that business in 2019 under some harassment allegations. She claimed to have been harassed, and then they settled out of court. But then it was, I suppose, a big conversation. I don't really know who was talking about it that much because I don't really remember hearing anything about this woman, but I don't read a lot of tech news, so that's probably why I didn't know about it. And I wasn't on the app, so, you know, their drama meant nothing to me. However, she left Tinder, and then she, through much soul-searching, decided that what needed to be done was, the internet was a negative place. She'd experienced a lot of negative backlash when she had left Tinder, and it had left her feeling very raw. And she said that what she felt like was the internet needed a place for positive commentary and where we needed to compliment each other instead of dragging each other all the time. Whereas I think most people would be like, I think we should probably put our phones down and go just touch some grass and talk to humans. She felt that it would be time to construct a sort of online room of safety where you could go to just feel good. And so she had this idea of creating this app called Merci, just for women and girls, where you could get on and it was to compliment each other. No comments, just compliments. And I'm not really sure who wants that. I've never in all my born days thought, I wish that I could just create a profile and then just get a lot of people to compliment me. I can't imagine spending time like scrolling through an app like that. So I can't imagine how the creation of that would have been successful. And I don't think anybody else did either, which is why her investor came and said, well, clearly she knew what she was doing in the app world. She'd been involved with Tinder. So this person, her investor, came and said, why don't we take this app and turn it into a dating thing? The name somehow changed from Merci to Bumble. We get none of this, by the way. Everything I'm telling you is not anything they talked about on the show, except in the vaguest of terms. And it's because Meghan says that's already covered ground.
That we've never actually talked extensively about everything that happened with you and your career trajectory, and a lot of it is like covered ground. So I don't need us to go through all that. I think people know your story of going from Tinder and then certainly creating your own thing.
Okay, what are you talking about? Then why did you have her on? If everybody knows everything there is to know about this person and you don't need to ask any questions, then why? I think the other thing that's frustrating is I don't know anything about this person. Just because she's Meghan's friend and they have a friendship and she knows about Meghan, I don't know anything about this person. I had to go look up everything I just told you. And I would love to know how this person, who, as Meghan reminds us, was in Time magazine for being one of the youngest female billionaires. I would like to know how she went from, trying to build dating apps to being this billionaire. I want to know how did she come up with the idea for dating apps? How did she decide to market that concept? I would like to know more about what it took to take an idea, make it a reality, and then build upon that. We don't get any of that. Now, this lady cannot be dumb, yet she came across as a complete and total bimbo throughout the entire 50 minutes. And I think it was such a disservice to her because I don't believe she's stupid. I just think the company she was with dragged her down into deplorable depths of inanity and foolishness. Much of what she had to tell us was things like, you just have to manifest what you want. It's all about positive energy. At one point, she's even telling Meghan, when you send out your packages, I know you spend a lot of time worrying about the actual packaging, and that stuff doesn't matter, but what does matter is the energy around it. I would encourage you to do a happy dance around your packages before you send them out so that that energy goes with. And I'm sitting here thinking, you didn't just line your bank account with billions of dollars because you did a happy dance and sent it out with your app. I didn't believe that information. I mean, forgive me, sorry. So it was really frustrating to listen to 50 minutes and then, have nothing to show for my time, especially because I tuned in hoping to hear something that was, even if it was something as simple as, I have so much going on in my day. As a mother, as a founder, as a CEO, these are the things I do to organize my day so I can fit in eating right. I can fit in working out. I can fit in being there and present for my kids. Here's some of the tips and tricks that I use so that I don't become so plugged into my devices that I miss out on the things that really matter. That would have been a conversation that would have been interesting because I think a lot of us have a hard time figuring out work-life balance. How do you people do it? She spoke vaguely about, not being so negative all the time and that she would have been more successful had she been less negative. But I also think, well, that's easy to say now that you're sitting on your pile of billions. If you just sat down and hummed to yourself on the top of a mountain and wished for good things, would you have had $1 billion? Your $1 billion came at the blood, sweat, and tears. So it's just hard for me to see exactly what she's talking about. There was nothing solid. There was nothing to hold on to. There was nothing about it that felt like I can apply that. That's a tool. That's a trick. So I knew it was going to be a mess when the podcast starts and Meghan says, and I'm talking about in the most vague terms. She vaguely tells us, I just want to have a conversation about what it's like to build something and then have it turn out not exactly as you wanted, but then build something else and then to step away, but then come back. And you've done all those things. But because we're such good friends, and I want this to feel like a conversation, I really just want to talk about how you met me.
As opposed to starting with just where it all began for you, I want to start with where we first met.
I love that. Oh, God.
Do you remember?
When I came to your house in a disco cowboy outfit?
How in the world is it that you would have somebody on under the auspice that you guys are going to be talking about the confessions of a female founder? So I'm plugging into this, believing we're having a business conversation about entrepreneurial skills and what it takes to build dreams into realities. And she tells me that she wants to talk about the time that this girl came over to her house dressed like a fool to go to a New Year's Eve party.
I was like, how am I going to meet this iconic elegant, classy couple, and I'm wearing a rhinestone disco crystal ball cowboy outfit because that was the theme on New Year's Eve.
That was, yes, that was the theme for the party you were heading to after you had dropped by our place. And it wasn't the theme of our house.
No.
We were having one of those quiet, we have young kids, we aren't having a night out kind of New Year's Eves.
She looked so silly. Archie still loves to talk about it. But yeah, that's how they met. And you're just like, why did we have to hear any of that? We have so much to talk about how we even started with Tinder, walking us through that, walking us through what it was like to leave and making the decision to leave something you'd helped build, walking us through, coming up with an idea that you thought was going to be really positive for the world, this place where we just made positive comments to other women, and then kind of, having to change that into something quite different. And then that is now another dating app that you're involved in. And then you feeling like you needed to step away from that because it was kind of crushing your soul to be part of it. And now you're back there. It's like there was so much to pack into those 50 minutes that would have quite frankly been very interesting. Had Meghan any interviewing skills? But she ain't got any. Because it never dawned on her to ask this lady anything about herself. Because as Meghan says, well, this is all covered ground. It's all covered ground. So I don't need to get into that with you. Again, why is she here then? There were a couple of points in this very chaotic conversation because there was no outline to it. And if you're not going to try to follow this person's career, and it's just you guys having this love-in about Meghan Markle and how great she is, and damn it, doesn't anybody want to give her a chance, then the conversation is going to be very willy-nilly. And it's very hard for me to recap this for you because there was nothing to hold on to in the whole conversation. There was no flow. There was no outline. I have tried to make this video, and I am not lying to you, no less than 15 times, trying to recap it in a way that you would feel that you kind of had gotten the flow of things, but there's no flow for me to give you. It was, let's talk about this random thing. Let's talk about that random thing. Let's talk about this random thing. And through all of it, it's Meghan going, praise me constantly and answer back the critics with me. So even when Whitney is talking about how she left Tinder and she was kind of in this interim trying to figure out what to do next, and she was being bombarded by the media in a way that felt really extreme for her, though she admits it probably wasn't as bad as for what you went through, Meghan. In fact, I know it wasn't. I mean, I can't even, my mind can't even wrap around what you've been through. And Meghan generously is like, that's okay, it's all relative. And the only reason we get to talk about Whitney's difficulty was because we all needed to talk about how hard it's been for Meghan. There's just so many negative voices out there about Meghan. And, Whitney wants to talk about a time when she'd been in Ireland, a completely different country, and all the covers of the magazines were about Meghan. And it wasn't even any content. They all had different stories. It wasn't even important. And I'm like, but what happened at Bumble? Why did you leave and now you're back? Why did you feel like you couldn't handle it? And then your CEO couldn't handle it after a year and now you're back. Like, that's the story I want, Whitney. How do you juggle it all? You got 2 boys, you got a husband who's got a big career, and you're, running this app over here. What's that like? What's it like being in the dating world side of things? What are people really like behind the wall? What's really happening with the dating? Do you think these dating apps are a good thing for society? Like, Meghan she's not an interviewer. She can't ask any interesting questions. She didn't ask any interesting questions except for, how do I stop thinking about the packaging details? I can't stop thinking about the packaging details.
For example, a month ago, I was absolutely consumed with packaging. Boxes. That's all I could think about. And I would sit there doing the unboxing in my head. Is there tissue paper? What about the packing peanuts? But they're biodegradable. And where does the sticker go? And hold on, what size the box is going to be? And no, that's not going to fit all the SKUs.
And my counter to that, Meghan, is this. What is this? Did you think about putting the stickers on? Were you so worried about the box that the jam would go into that you forgot about, I don't know, putting a sticker on without a huge bubble in the middle of it? Who put this on? And by the way, these pictures are pictures she posted on her social media. These are pictures that she posted in her stories of other people unboxing the PR boxes that she sent to them. So she didn't have to repost this. She didn't even look at the video closely enough to realize, I don't think I want that particular box. I don't want to sort of continue to spread the fact that the items that I sent out in the PR boxes looked this bad. And she wants us to believe in this podcast that she couldn't even sleep at night at 3 a.m. She's got a loop running in her head because she doesn't know what kind of packing peanuts to use. I'd start with getting a label on right. I'd start with, why is that logo so ugly? I'd start with, why is it not centered? Why is ever not capitalized? Why did you choose a couple of words that look so bad in your writing? At least American Riviera Orchard looked pretty in calligraphy. As ever, without ever capitalized and off-center from that little crest, looks like crap. I'm sorry, I don't know much about design or decor. I know nothing. Okay? I'm not a graphic designer, but I am a human. And I don't like the way that looks. It's not centered. It's not pleasing to the eye. It all feels wrong. The packaging is junky. It's generic. And the ingredients are bad. Look at the junk food ingredients on these boxes. This is junk food. These are additives. This is not healthy, good food. And if it's all about bringing a product you're proud of to let people know that you're thinking about them, please don't think about me. I'd rather not with the enriched white flour. Anyway, throughout the podcast, she really wants to get in the fact that, being a working mom is a challenge, but she has it's been such a gift to learn how to prioritize the things that are important. Now, on the one hand, I see the truth in that. I think when you have kids and you have people who are relying on you, you realize that it actually doesn't matter if I answer this email right now. My kids need my attention. I'm putting my phone down. And you can figure out what matters and what doesn't. Like when you have a new baby and it's time to nurse that baby, okay, the world is shut out. I'm going to this back room to nurse the baby, and it really doesn't matter what happens. I got to keep this kid alive. And there's a lot of freedom in finally realizing what matters, because before kids, it is sometimes hard to turn work off. And it is hard to believe that work doesn't need to run the show all the time. So I get what she's saying, and really what Whitney is saying, because that's really Whitney saying that. And, Meghan sort of coming along on the backside of that, being like, yes. Because, Lily is potty training right now. And, when she goes to the potty and, I give her little Cheerios as her reward, it's like, that's a big win for me. Even though I'm having so many wins in business, I can feel the win for Lily because, I understand priorities now.
I think what I do love the most about having young kids in this chapter while I'm building is the perspective that it brings. Mm-hmm. Because you're building something while your child's going through potty training. Great. Okay. Where's the Cheerios? Well done. And then you're championing your team 10 minutes later about something that is really high value for the world. But in your own world, that's super high value. And in her world, that's super high value.
What concerned me more about the conversation they had as moms was how it seemed like Meghan was constantly trying to mirror all the things that Whitney, who seems to be a proactive mom, is saying. Meghan clearly doesn't know what involved mom looks like because she's too busy using her kids as props for what she's up to in her business world. That's as useful as the kids are to her. And Whitney is talking about pickup and drop off and really wanting to be involved in that. She's the one who brought up the idea that it matters when you have kids because then you can sort of get better perspective on life. And Meghan is over there being like, yes, me too. Even down to the fact that Meghan is clearly mirroring Whitney in the preeclampsia episode that they both say that they suffered after their first pregnancies.
And we both had preeclampsia.
Oh, God. Can you believe we both had that? It's so rare.
It's so rare.
And so scary.
That does not have the ring of truth to me. I'm sorry. Have you ever heard anything more fake than that? How many of you believe that Meghan really experienced preeclampsia? What are you talking about? Even the sentence that she says right afterwards has liar written all over it because you can hear her fumbling for her words and trying to get her footing.
And so scary.
And you go, and you're still trying to juggle all of these things, and the world doesn't know what's happening.
She's not a truth teller. But even down to the way Meghan discussed her interactions with Lilibet and what it's like as a working mom.
Right.
So oftentimes, Lily still naps. She gets picked up early and she naps and she only has a half day in preschool.
Right.
So if she wakes up and she wants to find me, she knows where to find me. Even if my door is closed to the office, she will be sitting there on my lap during one of these meetings with a grid of all the executives. And here we are. And I think, that could have something to do with it. But also I wouldn't have it any other way.
What are you talking about when Lily is picked up? You just finished telling us how important it is for you to be present for drop-off and pickups. But nobody who's dropping off their daughter or picking their daughter up says, well, when she's picked up. Well, by whom? When I talk about picking my kids up from school, I say, well, I went and I got my daughter from school. When I go get my daughter from school. When I dropped my daughter off this morning. I don't say when she's dropped off in this sort of vague way as though somebody's got it. Whitney came across to me as a credible mother who is trying to juggle what it is to be a founder of a company and also to be a present mom. I found it interesting that Meghan asked permission if she could share Whitney's children's names, which, you know, that seemed generous. Considering Meghan's fear about anybody knowing anything about her kids, it seemed like the sort of thing Meghan would do. But then it's juxtaposed by the fact that Meghan is constantly on her social media sharing pictures of other people's children who are unboxing her jam. She's constantly showing and sharing stories of other people's kids. Yet she will never show us her own children's faces. But she definitely wants us to know she has them. They're definitely in all the pictures. She's definitely over there constantly reminding you that she's a working mother just slogging through it just like you. And none of it comes across as credible. Just like it didn't come across as credible when she was on Drew Barrymore's show, talking about, when the people are putting the kids to bed. I mean, when H is putting them to bed. You know, she's just so not present in their lives. And it just is not, it's not believable. But so much of this episode was her mentioning her kids because her brand needs to be that she is this mother, homemaker, you know, just do-it-yourselfer who's just trying to bring, you know, joy and beauty to life and be that mom, be that present, beautiful female spirit. We don't buy it. We don't. It's not happening. This whole podcast was such a disappointment to me. Again, it disappointed me that we didn't talk business at all. It disappointed me that I didn't gain anything since I thought I would. But what was even more disappointing to me was that a person who I believe is very intelligent, I think that Whitney must be intelligent because she has built she's built a financial empire. She's a billionaire. And I just can't believe that she could come across as so dull and dumb. And it made me sad, too, that this whole podcast that is based on female empowerment and women helping women, and we're talking about how, you know, these female founders, these titans of the industry, how they could come across as so petty and small, how they could come across as so ditzy and silly. And, you know, by the end of the podcast, they're giggling about how, you know, if you ever wanted to know what lunch is like with them, you just got, you know, you got a seat at the table. The only thing that's different is that they didn't have their couple of glasses of rosé. Gosh, wouldn't that have been fun? They love to take a lunch and get some rosé. And I thought, could you be any more stereotypically lame? You're giving women such a bad name with this silliness. I wanted a robust conversation. And it could have been really interesting, I think. Now, I don't know anything about this Whitney. Maybe she's really as dumb as she really sounds. And maybe she just tripped and fell over backwards into all this. But I highly doubt it. I believe she's an intelligent person. And I really wish that this interview could have told us from start to finish what it was really like for her. She could have told her story in 50 minutes if we hadn't had to have so many offshoots and side conversations about poor Meghan. You know, Meghan's flipping out about the boxes. And, you know, we've got Whitney over there basically being a mom to her and being like, well, okay, did you go to the meetings? Did you do your part? If you did, then you did the right thing. If you didn't, that's not good. But if you did everything you could, it's all going to be okay. It's going to be great. And we get this stupid little pep talk that I'm just like, what is this? Does any adult need that conversation? I think all of us, at the end of the day, when we're kind of like, something's kind of looping in our heads, the only way to get off that loop is to talk to yourself rationally and say, okay, how important is this? Why am I putting so much stock in this? And of course we have Whitney giving Meghan that little tip of, well, okay, ask yourself, is this going to matter in 5 minutes? Is it going to matter in 5 months? Is it going to matter in 5 years? And if it's not going to matter in 5 years, you kind of need to let it go. We've got Meghan needing to hear that kind of conversation. And I'm like, okay, but if you are going to found a company, you have to at least have enough brain cells to come to that conclusion that if it isn't going to matter in 5 years, what are you worried about? We have Meghan over there, you think you're done talking about the packaging. No, later in the conversation, she's still wanting to talk about the packaging. And it's like, why don't you worry a little bit more about what is in the package? Let's not worry about what it is delivered on people's porches as. And she's over there in her little Montecito luxury, not even knowing what a porch pirate is, because, she's like, I didn't know how to package this. I didn't know. And I just was so worried about what it was going to be like. And then somebody said something about porch pirates, and what is a porch pirate? It's like, okay, let's like make a list of all the things she doesn't know. She didn't know what lunchboxes were. She didn't know what porch pirates are. Every time I turn around, she's looking into the camera or, squealing into the microphone. What's this? What's that? I didn't even know. A curtsy? The British national anthem? What? I don't know. Well, how do you ever expect to get ahead if you don't know anything? To cap all this off, we have Harry wringing his hands because Meghan is so blatantly using their children, even though he's trying to be this talking head against social media and how it preys on the youngest members of our society. And he's constantly trying to establish himself as this leader in the conversation. Meanwhile, his wife's over there, inching closer and closer to showing these kids' faces. Constantly using them in stories, on clips, on little videos, in the podcast talking about them, because so much of the conversation was made up of her wanting us to know she's a mom. And it's so frustrating for him because, for him, it's like, I thought we agreed that our kids weren't part of this conversation, we don't use them for public consumption in order to further our ends. And she's doing exactly what he didn't want. And he's frustrated about that. And there was a lot of stories that came out that week of him just being like, why are you doing this? Because this isn't what we agreed to. Meanwhile, we also see him this week back in England trying to get security for him and his family when they come over to the UK, whining and complaining, even though this case was dismissed. We're back in appeal. And he's still saying, why can't it be? I don't understand. Why can't I have security? And it's like, do you not understand anything, Harry? Do you not understand that your wife was always planning on using the kids when it would be most useful to her, that you cannot get security because you are no longer a prince and the taxes no longer, apply to your well-being? Do you just not understand anything? Are the two of you so bamboozled by life? Your wife is constantly starting up ventures that are destined to fail because it's yet one more vanity project where she gets to talk about herself and how she's, completely been undermined. Meanwhile, she's undermining you, Harry, in your own home, showing your kids right, left, and center, though admittedly not their faces. We're still getting them in various poses and, helping her with this, that, and the other. She's still using them, very much using them. In fact, it's almost an insult that she won't show their faces at this point because it's like, you don't need an identity. I just need the back of your head or your hands. And Harry just has no concept, no understanding that the battles that he's fought already in the UK are not winnable battles, yet he continues to go back to the same battleground. It's like, does he just want to keep fighting the same battle? Clearly, because he's married to a woman who doesn't listen or respect to him, so every day he's fighting that same battle. Then he goes over to the UK to keep fighting that same battle. Or he's sitting for a camera talking about how, the internet, we really got to get a handle on this thing called the internet. It's like, what is up with all of these unwinnable battles? It's like he's setting himself up for defeat so he never has to be victor of anything and then actually have to take on a real role and a real leadership role. He wants to fail. Failure is the only place that he feels comfortable in because then nothing is ever required of him. That's why he continues to stay in these same lame legal battles, same horrible marriage. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable how the two of them continue to just live in failure factories, but none of them are looking for the exit. And that's what I have to say about that.